Hey guys, welcome back to an amazing episode of Trade Stock. I got such an exciting guest in the studio, Mr. Jon Gohl from Aspire Software. Jon, welcome to the podcast today, man.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having me and super glad to be here.
So I'm so stoked because Jon and we've built this relationship over the years, seen each other at conferences and through the Aspire journey that I've taken. And we always have these deep conversations about the meaning of life and this like really deep stuff. And so, Jon, like I've wanted to get you on the podcast for a long time. I'm so stoked that we made it happen and you're here today. Super grateful to be in this moment. And for those, let's get this out of the way. For those who have no idea who Jon Gohl is, which is probably not too many people, you're pretty well known in our industry. What's your story, man? You've been at Aspire for a number of years. What do you do there? Tell us a little bit about that. And then I want to get down into some deep stuff about life and work and business and everything.
Yeah, Justin, I think quick snapshot of the storybook is got out of school with an agriculture degree, passionate about Spanish, found myself at a commercial landscape company, grew up on a system similar to Aspire, married my now beautiful wife in San Diego, and made the flip from commercial landscaping to get into the software side. Been at Aspire for 12 years. That really helped me understand ticket management, what we're doing. And I moved from implementation to the customer client experience role.
Awesome. And that's where I first met you, is with that implementation role that you were in. And I remember it very vividly when we signed with Aspire. I think you and I met, and it was a whole team with us. 48 hours later, you were on a call from your garage coming to us. And that welcoming into the Aspire family was so big for us because we connected because we're both in California and everything. And it was just like, all right, cool. Like, it's not just we were talking to Maggie at the time. It's not just Maggie being our connection. We have this whole network of people with such a diverse background that welcomes us into this family of our journey into software. Because before that, we weren't really on any software.
No, you're totally right. And I want to correct you. It's not the garage, it's the studio.
Yeah, brother.
When we bought the house, I had this deal with my wife. Like, yes, we can move from a condo to a home, but the garage is mine. And it's kind of like when you tell your kids, like, they're like, Mom, Dad, like, I promise I'll walk the dog every day. You have the dog or the cat for a couple weeks and they're not doing anything. Well, she quickly forgot that the garage was mine. But yeah, a lot happened from that garage, Justin, and a lot happened in those meetings, right? Understanding who you were, what were your goals, what do you want to achieve, and who's the team that you're bringing to the platform? Who are you? What's your culture? And how the heck do we get there? And I haven't done those meetings for a while, but I do miss them. And I love anyone that's making reference to the studio, or in your case, the garage.
Yeah. So, well, all right, cool. Got that out of the way. Now, something that I've been obsessed with recently is this idea of disruption and change and the speed at which that can happen. Part of it is being here in the Silicon Valley, where I get to work with people. We literally landscape the backyards of some of the most influential technology-focused entrepreneurs in the world. We get to work with some of the most amazing people that are in the tech space. A few years ago, I was one of the 40 under 40 CEOs in the Silicon Valley magazine. I got to get kind of inducted into that little bit of a network there. And what I took away from that over the last couple of years is our industry is inherently slow at change and technology adoption. Now, there's a balance there that you and I have talked to. And when I start talking about speed, you were one of maybe the only person that has actually given me something back to think about at such a deep level. You've given me a lot about racing, cycling, climbing. So, you and I were talking about this a few weeks ago. You had a recent experience climbing a mountain and realizing, how humbling that can be. And so I just kind of wanted to go right there, right away, and talk about this idea of speed and connection and building.
Yeah, and I'll totally do that. You talked about our industry being slow to change, and you talked about disrupting. We are disruptors naturally. We disrupt landscapes.
Yeah.
We take something, disrupt it, and turn it into something super amazing, right? We create environments. So we are naturally disruptors who are sometimes slow to change on the other side, but we'll change the landscape with no problem. And I think
I
that's
like that
something we have to
analogy.
agree. Yeah. No, yeah, Justin, when I moved to San Diego 14 years ago, I was walking with a cane, was told I needed a knee replacement, had been racing bicycles, and last year somebody called me, said, let's walk across the Grand Canyon. And I built a plan with a former colleague of mine who does professional um,
Yeah.
marathons, ultra marathons, on the road, off the road, but
Wow.
built a plan to get me there and started walking back in March. Of course, during the NALP Renewal Remembrance this summer, the Grand Canyon caught on fire. So I did a couple walks this past week and a couple weeks ago in Moab and up in Park City. But yeah, I learned a lot about myself and a lot about the people who got me there.
And
And I don't know if you want me to talk more on that, Justin. I'm certainly
yeah,
happy.
well, I guess the question on that is, when did you and why did you decide to take on this mission of walking across the Grand Canyon? Where'd that come from?
Okay. So, first of all, I had become sedentary. And I think a lot of us fall into this lifestyle where we're not moving.
Yeah.
And I watch people all around me. I'm surrounded by older generations here. I do wellness checks on people. And what I'm finding is they're getting comfortable in that lazy boy, but they're sedentary.
Yeah.
They've given up on movement. And I realized I was slowly becoming someone like that. And of course, my wife tells me every day to do X, Y, Z. But sometimes it's certain people, I think, that have played a role in our life, whether they're alive or they're no longer with us. There's a message sometimes from someone else. It's the same message you hear every day, but when you hear it from somebody that's a colleague or someone you look up to, it strikes you. And an old college roommate of mine called me up. We tripped up in Minnesota, Canada. We've been on a number of adventures again, and he said, we're going to walk the Grand Canyon. And it was time to get at it. And I started walking. I got out of that sedentary state, and all I did was walk. And I got a plan, and
Yeah.
I started doing it gradually. And the body, everything that I'd gone through, 4 knee surgeries, can't ride a bicycle, it didn't care. It accepted this movement, and I started gaining traction. And I
How
just kept sticking with the plan.
I love that, gaining traction. How important was that when you got up to walk, that you had a mission you were working towards? Like, you knew you had this mission of walking the Grand Canyon, and like that was going to be really hard. So you had to train for that versus just going out and just walking to walk. How important was it to have like this end goal to work towards?
Well, it's setting the goal. And I said this at Ignite, Justin. It's so much about sharing the goal with everyone around you.
Yeah.
And I'm a living example of that. If you want to do something, that's great, but you can't keep it here. Whether it's you want to double your revenue, you want to grow your company, you want to buy more companies, you want to run a marathon, you want to lose weight, that's great, but it's only when you externalize. And by sharing with people, now somebody's like, I do this for a living. I will write you a plan. Someone else is achieving the same goal. Here's what I'm eating. Here's what I'm putting in my water bottle. You start collecting all this data from people that have been there or connecting with people who know someone that have been there before. But it's only when you become a sponge and you don't make decisions immediately, you're digesting the data, the information, the sharing. And some of these people aren't giving you tips and trips, but they're giving you support. And it was in that, having that goal, but having this number of people affect me, empower me, help me plan, that I think truly helped me get there.
I completely agree with that. When you internalize, you give yourself an out. And I'll compare it to like this. Like, a lot of people wake up with the intention of, I'm going to go to the gym today when I get off of work. They don't tell anyone that except themselves, and they internalize that. And then they get off work and they're tired and they're exhausted and they're hungry and they just like, they're ready to get home. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll go tomorrow morning. Versus hiring a personal trainer and having a scheduled workout at 6 p.m., let's say. You're not going to miss that 6 p.m. workout with a personal trainer. A, you've probably already paid for it. There's a cancellation fee. But B, it's more than that. It's just, and I could even say you just meet a friend there at the gym. Like, you're going to go there because there's someone else that now knows about your goal. And that's bringing it into this like super micro level. But in the macro, when you're trying to accomplish a really big goal, like for us, and this is, I'll say it here, this is kind of me, utilizing this platform to say our goal is we want to create 35 employee millionaires by 2035. And to do that, we have to generate a minimum of $150 million in employee wealth by 2035. So for our mission to be true, and for where things are at, I know we have to be about $1 billion in valuation by 2035. This all drives the mission of creating employee millionaires. And so our goal at K&D is to become a $1 billion company by 2035 with publicly traded exit route for our employees, so they can buy and sell stock just like they would for Apple, Google, or what have you. And whether we get there or not doesn't matter as much as the fact that we're marching towards this goal of how close can we get. And when people hear that, I get a lot of people reaching out being like, hey, I want to help you get there. Hey, here's a tool that I think will help you. Here's this and that. And so that's been pretty exciting how many people have helped, and not just helped in terms of they want to be part of it, but helped in terms of, hey, like, I've done something similar to this. And one of these people works at your company, Connor Tillman, at ServiceTitan, and he's been a huge resource to me of like, hey, I know a lot of guys, who have sold their companies for multiple billions of dollars. Here's how they did it. Like, and I never thought I'd be able to sit down and have conversations with people like that. So when you start to externalize your goals and share it with people, whether it's, climbing a mountain or whatever you're trying to accomplish, like, I agree, people show up in your life because you've asked for them to show up in your life.
I'll tell you what, in the toughest time of my climb, and I did 2 hikes, and I got up to elevation, and I was struggling a little bit, but I will say I had a goal, and I had people help me train, write training programs, etc., which helped me believe in my fitness. I didn't set out to do it for my nephew who's going blind. Now, I certainly thought about him in times of darkness or when I thought I could no longer see, but I wasn't doing it for somebody. I was truly doing it for me. It was Jon versus the mountain, Jon versus nature. And while I wasn't doing it for anyone else, I was doing it because of the people who impacted me. I was doing it I go to the grocery store every single day, Justin. I take a break. I walk to the grocery store. I like fresh food. I love cooking. I was doing it for the guys, for Jeff and Sean in the butcher section, who checked in when I came in with my dorky gear, like, how'd it go? When's the walk? As soon as I got done, they're asking. I could feel everyone who had encouraged me or had dropped some tip or trick to get there around me. And so it wasn't just me walking up that mountain. It was everyone that helped me get there. And never taking your eye off that, and believing in that that is fuel to engage and conquer.
And gosh, we need fuel. I mean, for people who think that, you're mentally strong enough to just go and conquer the world, we need fuel, and fuel we need at the darkest times. I always say, and it's probably similar to the experience you had, but it's, there are days where your business does not love you back. You can love your business, you can love your career, you can love, the mountain unconditionally. And there are times where that mountain or that business or that career will not love you back. And those are the hardest days to keep going, is you're like, man, I've given my entire life to this. Why is it not working how I thought it was going to work?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's when it's not giving back that I think we stop listening.
Yeah, because we don't like what it's saying.
Because it's telling me something different than where I want to go or I plan to go. And one thing I learned about the mountain, and perhaps you could substitute it with marketplace or the market. There was a certain point at elevation where the mountain poked me in the chest and said, Jon, you can only go this fast. Someone at ServiceTitan, Chris Law, He runs our care center, global care support. He's a guide, and he said, only breathe normal. When you can't breathe normal, return to the speed where you can breathe normal. And I think a lot of times when business isn't going our way, we're losing our sense of breath. Mm-hmm. And we're not stopping to talk to why or what's happening and digesting that information. And while speed kills, I think there's a time to be still, to engage in stillness, to understand what's happening around me. What are the circumstances? What is the weather? What's out there? And analyzing that to understand where you're at and where you still have to go or where you want to go, and then regrouping and finding a plan to get there. And sometimes we get lost in our own speed, our own energy, and we don't return to stillness. But we've got to sit back. Professional batters do it between pitches. They take a moment, maybe they take a timeout and just digest the situation and not necessarily look to swing the bat at the next pitch.
Wow. And how do you know when it's time to slow down and observe and really be still and conscious and in the moment with that? Is there indicators that we can...
Yeah, I think there are, Justin. That's a good question. For me, I'm looking for mistakes.
Okay.
Identifying mistakes. Where did we not achieve something? And sometimes the mistakes are the most basic mistakes. And I'll give you an example, and I'll go back to the mountain. It's missing a step. In the 19 miles, the 14 hours I walked, I had under 15 steps, but I'm counting them. I'm aware of when that step wasn't right. And it was a step that could have led to like pulling a muscle, spraining an ankle, or wow, you could have fallen off that mountain.
Right.
It's
one
the
wrong
simple
step.
things. I'll give you another one. It was doing a basic equipment check. Now, military people, right? They're trained. They know their equipment inside and out. I thought I did, but I got to elevation. I got confused. And I wish I would have set some checkpoints to evaluate myself. So whether that's once a day, at the end of the day, debriefing. We heard from our friend, the Blue Angel pilot, John Foley, talking about debriefing. But I think that we have to debrief daily, weekly, or set a point to debrief to check ourselves. And because a lot of times we're not listening. A lot of times it's too late by the time we do. But if we're taking time to step away, debrief, then we can recollect ourselves and move on.
And I love that indication as mistakes, and the mistakes being the small ones that you shouldn't be making. I can relate this to piloting and flying planes. It's the same thing. When you get in a rush and you're pre-flighting your plane, it's a 15-minute ritual to pre-flight the plane that I fly. And it's easy to just be like, well, I flew the plane yesterday and the tire pressure was good and they looked the same. I flew the plane yesterday and, all the lights worked. So why would they not work today? And you get into that mindset of like, I don't need to check the lights. I don't need to check to make sure the fuel pump actually works because it worked yesterday. And I think we get into that rhythm. Well, if you fly every single day and you have that mindset, sooner or later, it's going to be that day where it doesn't work. And that's the day where it all goes bad. So I think you mentioned checklists, and we have to identify, and this is where it gets hard, I think. Checklists for day-to-day stuff that you've experienced and gone through, easy to build. But what you're talking about is, I think, like checklist 2.0, which is how do you build a checklist for a place that you've never been? And I think that's the challenge as you grow, let's say, growing a business. I don't know what it's like to be $100 million business, but there's probably a timeout and a checklist I should run through as we approach, from going from 8 to 9 figures.
Yeah, if I learned anything, the checklist is humility. Humility is a survival skill. And you're getting up in an airplane, a piece of technology that worked yesterday. Humility kills you, right? Regardless, I've got to check my diagnostics, check everything. But humility, it's the most humbling experience, and it is a survival skill. It's vital to survival, being humble. Accepting the errors, accepting the losses, but taking time to check and see what's working and then moving on.
Yeah. I think the humility aspect is often looked at as weakness by a lot of people today. It's kind of looked at as like, why are you so emotional? Why are you caught up in all this? But I agree. I think humility is a core, fundamental core value of being a survivalist. And it's not so much about being the best every day, but it's about surviving the tough days is what really dictates, I think, successful and not successful people in life. It's not, what do you think about that?
To your point on humility, so what's a checklist? It's a series of questions.
Right.
Right? Does this work? Is this functioning? Is there enough fuel in the plane? But take that humility now, and those are humble questions, right? I'm just checking. There's no ego involved. It's a checklist.
Yeah,
now take that humility to a trade conference. Take it to your peer group. Take it to a party. All it is asking questions. And I'll tell you, the most popular person at a party isn't the owner of the biggest company. It's not the most successful person with the bank account. The most memorable person at a party will be the person who asked everybody questions about themselves or questions to help me if I'm there. How do I do this? Have you done something like this? But I'm asking them questions. That's when you become memorable. And I'm just being humble, but I'm able to collect data. I'm able to check checklists because I'm being humble. I'm not speaking down on the people. I'm asking them for questions or asking for support, and everyone wants to help everybody. So why not be humble and not have the answer or pretend not to have the answer? Because you just might find a nugget to tweak your answer and get that much farther ahead.
Great advice. And I see that. What's interesting is I see that from the most successful people I've ever met. They aren't bragging about anything. They are asking you questions. And it's uncomfortable sometimes because they're so interested in not your goals or this or that, but they're so interested in how does this person think? How does this person draw conclusions around their goals? And they're very interested in learning from people, no matter their position in life or their success financially or otherwise. And I think that is why. Also, that is what leads to, I use this word called sustainable happiness, because you can't just be like happy all the time. It's just unreasonable. But you can create sustainable happiness in your life by honoring certain rituals and certain values. And I think one of those is being curious and truly being authentically curious, not asking questions because you want to figure out the secrets to life and be more successful. But it's like being curious just to be curious, I think is one of those fundamental values.
I love it. I couldn't agree more.
So I want to ask another question around this idea of unplugging, because here we are, people are listening to us on their phone probably, or another electronic device. We're here sitting on electronic devices. I mean, they're everywhere, and we couldn't do what we do without them. But with more and more devices surrounding us and more interconnectivity with AI now, and it seems like everyone's got the smart glasses and, the Apple Watch and more technology. Is that, in your opinion, becoming even more important to then unplug and get away from technology? Almost, the more technology we have, the more we have to actively work into the natural world. And do you see more people on the trails when you're hiking? I mean, walk us through that thought process when it comes to technology today.
Yeah, I look back, Justin, and I'm proud to date myself. I'm 50 years old. I remember being in school. There wasn't an internet, and the internet came out, created huge anxiety. I think there's something similar right now with AI, like, oh my gosh, am I going to figure this out? Get on board. You're already using AI, you don't even know, or it's using you, you don't even know. I think we're in another wave like the internet where it'll just become a thing of the past, but I have always been weary of getting too deep in technology, too tied to things. What I love about the phone calls now is every time the phone rang, anxiety. 9 times out of 10, it's spam, right? I haven't gotten the restraining order on spam,
Yeah.
but wish I had never dated spam. But 9 times out of 10, it's not even for me. There's like less anxiety. But I do see people leveraging technology, I think, for areas of how to unplug. That would be
Mm.
a place to go. Like, how do I unplug?
Yeah.
Hey, ask AI. It's probably got an answer. But what I love about this industry, while we're leveraging technology to move our companies forward, et cetera, we're still creating spaces to unplug, right? It's what we do for a living.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah.
the beautiful backyard or it's the break area outside of a commercial building or it's just this welcome environment that says, welcome to our company. That's where we're creating. And I think finding time to unplug and enjoy what's been created or enjoy what the creators provided is equally as important. And I think, yes, we're seeing it in some of the curriculums throughout the country right now, but there is a return to mindfulness. It's to learn to wash the dishes, not think of anything else, but that act of doing what we're doing, and we're washing the dishes without AI if you're washing them with a sink. But yeah, I think unplugging is becoming really popular. It's that balance. If we don't have that balance and we get too one-sided, we're going to trip and fall because we forgot what our legs were doing.
Right. Right. We're becoming, well, you said it earlier, sedentary, and we're just still way too much of the day compared to where we used to be. I think mindfulness is also easily forgotten about. It takes conscious effort to get to mindfulness, to get to the point where you're thinking about, like, how do I feel? How does my body feel at this moment? How does my brain feel at this moment? A word that I hear from a lot of the young guys that I'm talking to who are, let's just say 18 to 22, that are started businesses and they're doing these amazing companies. I was talking to someone out in Ohio, and he was just saying how much anxiety he has every day. Sometimes he wakes up and he has 3 employees. He just tells them, sorry, no work today, because he just feels like he's just so wound up. And I was talking to him like, man, well, if you focus on the present, like you focus on just today, putting that next foot in front of the other, and not even today, but just like right now and the next 3 seconds, it's impossible to have anxiety because you're only thinking about the future. Now, obviously, it's easier to say than do, but I think a lot of us are so caught up in a future state that we see ourselves in, whether it's negative or positive. Often it's negative, that we aren't able to enjoy or even react to the present moment and be mindful, right? To me, that means being mindful is being in the moment. How, if at all, do you stay in the moment when you're going through times where there's more stress in your life?
First, I let go of the past.
Okay.
What happened, happened. And I don't look too far into the future because we create stories about a future that hasn't even happened. And it's about silencing the mind. Let go of the stories of the past. Don't create stories about the future. Just enjoy the here and now and be diligent. We must be diligent today and diligent in the moment. So you're down 3 people today. Understood. That happened.
Right.
The future was what I was going to get done today and get done this week. We'll throw that out the door. Don't get angry about it. Now be diligent. How do we get off the lot? What are we going to accomplish today? And today is 10 minutes away when they run into it, they have a traffic accident or a machine goes down. It's constantly happening, but we get so angry of what happened, and then we get so angry about what we're not going to achieve versus what can we do now?
Yeah. Well, what
How
you're
do we
taking,
course correct?
Yeah, what you're taking us through is a mental checklist of asking yourself that question, right? We go back to that checklist of flying the plane or a gear check. It's
Yeah.
the same thing. Have a checklist that you can run through in the moment when things get out of control.
I mean, Jared, we were at that, or Justin, excuse me, we were at that Weathermatic event, and you came in on a flat tire.
Yeah, that was wild.
Think of how present you were at that moment. And it was a split-second decision you made, but I would like to think there was a moment of stillness, of clarity, where you were truly present.
It was such extreme present moment, such an extreme feeling of being in the moment that I almost in a way blacked out, because like there's this part of time that's almost missing from so what happened is we were landing the plane at an airport just east of Phoenix, at Chandler Airport, and it was nighttime. It was like 9:30. It was dark, and as soon as we touched down, the tire on the pilot side blew out, and it wasn't obvious at first. It was more just something's wrong, and it went from something's wrong, something's not usual, because I've landed a plane 1,000 times, to okay, what are we going to do about that? And I'm not verbalizing any of this. I'm not even asking myself these questions, but my body's going through this rapid, automatic, autonomous reaction chain of reactions. And
Checklist.
it's a checklist. Yeah. And you practice for this stuff, in planes and in life, you practice for when things don't go your way. You get punched in the face, as they would say. And then you react second by second, and you do what I call is the OODA loop. So it's observe what's going on around you, orientate yourself. How do I interact with my reality? You decide on what you're going to do, and then you act on that thing that you decided. And then it's called the loop. So it's OODA loop, because you do it again. And this thing can happen once a day, or it can happen once a second. And when your life is on the line, and I've had some, very close calls. I've been life flighted in a helicopter after a really bad dirt bike accident. I've rolled my truck off of a giant cliff when four-wheeling. I've had a lot of crazy stuff. In those moments, what I've noticed is time slows down. It really does. And every second becomes this like interactive opportunity to react to the reality that you're experiencing. And our brains are capable of some amazing, amazing things.
And that is being present. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes those kinds of moments to wake us up, but you could do it with day-to-day activities.
It's like, how close can you get to that? Yeah, you're right. You can't artificially create these moments, but you can come close to them through like deep meditation. And even I say deep, but you can do it through a 3-minute meditation.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it. Like, when's the last time? And if you're listening to this, maybe you should, if you're driving, don't, but like, maybe you should just hit pause and take 30 seconds and take 3 deep 10-second breaths.
Yeah, it's as simple as returning to the breath. And that's what the mountain taught me. Return to the breath, because it was actually you are breathing to keep moving. But now you apply that to your daily life, and it's like, wow. Pay attention to your breathing when 3 people call up and cancel. You're pissed off, Justin. Think about your breathing. Now return. Get settled back in the pocket. Go through the loop. Figure it out. Let's walk on.
That is, I think, the difference between people who live a very stressed out, chaotic life and those who don't. Some people think it's external factors, which we all have external factors, some more than others, whatever. At the end of the day, though, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So it's all relative to your own experience.
Yeah. It's when the noise drowns out the voice of the breath. And that noise it's stories in your head. Some are real, some are false. But turn down the volume, hear yourself breathe, get back to where you should be. Digest, make a decision, and move on.
Man, I love this conversation. I think this is something that a lot of people have to hear every so often. Maybe it's every couple months, but it's a reminder. I mean, like, I'm kind of going through this in the moment myself and being in the moment. I'm thinking of like, man, there's a lot going on right now in my life and in our business. And I'm sure every single person listening to this is, this is a really interesting time, this end of the season period in the landscape industry. Software companies start to kind of ramp up, more inflow. Landscape companies were maybe ramping down, but right before we ramped down, we're like this big spike of fall cleanups and all this stuff is going down. And I think this is the moment where this reminder is more important than any other time during the course of our seasons.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So I want to ask a question, kind of going back to speed and disruption. And
Yeah.
being someone or somebody or a company that's willing to do something different, simply to do something different. And I think a lot of people are out there looking for an edge in our industry. For someone's out who's out there trying to act with speed around these new ideas, Jon, what is some advice that you have? Because you and I have talked to this, we hit on it a little bit, but it's this double-edged sword around speed where it's like if you move too fast, you crash. If you go too slow, you get past. How do you dial in speed when it relates to new ideas and kind of bringing disruption to a market?
Okay. New ideas, bringing disruption to a market. What do I do with speed? I think, first of all, there's a goal in mind. If it's a race, is it an important race to be in? What's the goal of the race? It's understanding the path forward. So what's it take to get from the starting line to the finish line? What's the course look like? Well, totally being open that the course may change. But it's understanding the course itself and the goal and where you intend to end up. And then speed is something you apply, right? You don't start off necessarily on certain courses the fastest person in the pack, but knowing when to apply your speed. And the application of speed, I think, is determined by the course. Who am I when I'm fast? Am I fast going out there alone? Am I better going fast out of the gate? Or am I sprinting? Am I going to apply my speed at the end of the race? Right. And it's understanding everybody around you. So as you're reaching that goal, who are my competitors? Whether it's the course, it's the weather, or is it the competitor down the street? Is it everybody in my industry? You've got to understand who they are. You've got to understand their weaknesses, and you've got to understand their speed. How fast can they go? Now, a lot of that's data reconnaissance, right? I'm getting data, I'm listening to people, but you can't just go so cocky and say, I know this course better than anyone, I know the conditions, I know myself, I will dominate. You've still got to be willing to understand where other people might apply speed. And I'll give you an example, Justin. If I'm stronger in the last 200 meters of a race to the finish line, that's my sprint.
Yeah.
But I know you're fantastic at 200, I might pull my gun out at 4. Get some distance off you, recover. And my last 200 won't have as much speed or gas. The bullet won't come out of the chamber as fast, but it'll be fast enough to pinch you at the finish line. And I only knew that because I knew about you. So I got there because I knew about you and everyone else in terms of when to engage, when to activate, and also understand when I need to settle in. Other people are going out there, they're applying speed. I've got to be confident in my plan, the people that help me get there, and I'm confident that I know you enough to know that you pulled your gun a little too early and being settled in. So I hope that answered your question.
Well, it does, and it kind of leads me into this next train of thought, which is when applying these metaphors to business, we are applying something to what's called, using Simon Sinek's term, the infinite game. Now, if you're going to sell your business and retire, well, then maybe you have a date in mind. Maybe you have a point where you're ready to walk away. That is your finish line. But I think even most people who sell, they stay engaged after the sell. The good ones and the most successful people do. So while there's this finish line in certain races, I think in a lot of our businesses, we create these finish lines and we get to the finish line and we're gassed and we realize this wasn't the finish. This was a check-in. And the race continues because the business is infinite. And so I think when we think about that, a lot of times at that moment, we realize the competitor we've been focused on that we just beat, we're so far ahead of them that there's no value in comparing ourselves any longer. And I think that's like where we can apply the race is like, okay, we won that race. We are beyond that competitor, where comparing myself to that competitor serves no value because we have created such a gap that comparing ourselves just makes ourselves overly confident and arrogant that we're good, but we're really not great yet. And what I'm realizing more and more, the biggest competitor is ourselves if we don't change. And when you start to compare yourself and your future state to where you would be if you don't change, that I believe is like that unlock to true disruption. Because is it better to let the market disrupt you and then you adjust and respond to the trend? Or is it better for you to create the trend and then let everyone else respond to what you did if it was successful? And that's the asterisk, if it was successful.
If it was successful, but even if it was not, I think in our failures or our success, the one thing that we gain greater than any technology is crystallized knowledge. It's wisdom. It's experience. Yeah. You can talk to AI all day about walking up a mountain, but you still have to walk up it yourself. You might use AI to leverage decisions. Ultimately, you're the one making the decision. And it's in that debrief that we gain, we understand where we won, where we failed. It's where we get wisdom, and it's carrying that forward. Yes, we did this, and we are outpacing everyone. Great. I still want to leverage everything I learned to moving forward.
And yeah, totally agree. I think debriefing, going back to speed, going back to the checklist, right? I think I'm guilty of this. This is like kind of my biggest weakness, I think, is I'll skip the debrief because I think I've already learned the lesson and I just want to get back to work. I just want to get back to the batter's box and get back to hitting the pitches. I skip the debrief and my team skips the debrief because in a way we think we've already learned what we need to learn and we're so ready to move with speed that we're go right back in the game. But I think the value of the debrief is not what you learned, but it's what everyone else learned and sharing that together.
Yeah, think about, were you there for John Foley, the Blue Angels pilot? So there's 10 people up in the air, they're flying together, and they debrief, they talk about checking you at the door. I'm like, yeah, like people really do that. No, they really do. Yeah. But I might have flown the perfect flight, the perfect pattern, and the guy next to me, he was saying, and we watched it, it's like, I missed the right 45. Holy smokes. And these guys were saying, I'm glad to be here. They were glad that they survived. They didn't swap paint, right?
Yeah.
But unless you knew your teammate, holy smokes, my teammate had a problem. I had no idea. I thought we crushed it. I've got to listen to everybody, right? If I'm not, then all I did was create this story that I'm Rocky. I won against whoever and great, but no, man, it was a lot closer than you thought. People around you. And as leaders, we get so focused on where we want to go that we don't think about everybody below us. How bought in are they? Are they winning? Are they making mistakes? If you don't listen to them, the we is gone. And when I told you earlier about walking up the mountain, it wasn't Jon Gohl. It was we and they and everybody that was around me, metaphorically, spiritually, whatever you want to call it, Justin, that got me there. And that's, like you said, it's not asking those around you that gets you in trouble.
Gosh, that is so good. And in our industry, it's so easy to take our perspective and apply it to the future. But we can't ignore the fact that 80% of our team members as a landscape company go out into the field every day. They're in the trucks. They're not in our factories. They're not in the office. They're out in the world. And oftentimes, let's say a company, 20, 30 employees, there's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 office, quote unquote, level people who debrief, and they are listening to this. They're like, dude, I'm crushing it because my team, we're debriefing like every day. We're doing so great. But the truth is, if you're not debriefing with the guys and girls that are in the field every single day, and you're not talking to them on a regular basis, and you don't have that feedback loop, you're missing 80% of the perspective in your business.
Yeah. And the other 20
yeah.
that you're missing is what's actually happening to you outside of work.
Yep.
With your employees. Instead of why the hell did we lose so much last week on your mowing routes? I had no idea you had a child in the hospital with leukemia. Holy smokes. If I think about it, if we knew a little bit about how they feel personally, that's the culture, right? I care about you. I got your back. I'll be there. I'll go visit your child. I mean, that's the other thing that we don't know is happening out there. What's happening personally. And that's a culture thing. And that's something to stay tapped into. Because at the end of the day, the greatest leaders are the ones leading the greatest families. And that family is that culture. It's their people.
It's so true. We try, and I hope we do an okay job at this, but when people are struggling, calling out sick, not showing up on time, the first question always has to be like, how are you? Like, how are you doing? Because when you go to, hey, you got to show up. What the hell are you thinking? You know, we pay you so well. Why aren't you showing up? Versus, hey, how are you? Like, what's going on? And every time I've asked that question, every time I've started the conversation with curiosity and true humility, I hear something that makes me change everything I was thinking. And you have this new perspective. Like you said, there's something that you had no idea about, and you go, oh shit, man. Like, and how do we support you through this?
It's an opportunity. We talked about externalizing when you have a goal. How about externalizing when shit hits the fan? Hey, I've got some heavy on me. People don't want to bring that to work. I don't want to tell you about what happened this weekend with my family.
Yeah.
But man, when you ask, you're sincere about the ask, you might have opened the door for that person to share what's going on, what's really troubling them. And now we're going to get after it together. And you're going to work, you're going to make money, or you're going to take the day off, and I'm going to make sure you make money. But we're going to help get you there because we want you here next week. We want you here after that crisis.
You got to be here. And some people, in a way, they want to use work as an escape from that crisis or whatever is going on. But we all know, like, unless you face what's going on truly, then you're never going to get over or past it or through it, however you want to say. And when you can help someone do that, and there's some people that we both know who've done this for their team and have talked about it on stage, and you hear those moments and you go, wow, that is level 5 leadership right there. That is so far beyond just running a good business.
Yeah, and you said it. You have to be here. If you're not here, you can't be here for someone else. If you're caught up in the rat race in your head, you're not here. Yeah. How the hell? And I think about it every time. I do it all the time, especially at home. And my wife's not listening to the podcast. I don't hear half the things she say because I've got the TV or technology or these voices inside my head. But when you're truly here and you're truly listening and not thinking about where you're already supposed to be, you tap into just an unbelievable amount of knowledge with the people you're talking to. Whether it's the job, it's personal, it's connection, it's important to be here and to listen.
So important. I think we're right at that moment where it's time to start bringing the plane in for a landing.
Yeah.
This has been such a great talk. Jon, what I love about this talk is, in this show is, I think a lot of people are going to see your name and be like, oh, it's just going to be a technology discussion about Aspire.
Yeah.
And this was the episode that everybody needed to hear, not the one about AI and technology and how to implement better. This was the information that I think our guests needed to hear, whether they knew it or not. But as we are getting to the end of the episode, and those who are still with us, which I think are the most people listening, just thank you for sharing this and being present and being authentic and not coming on here with an agenda or anything else. It's very, very refreshing. I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, Justin, like I said when we started, I'm just glad to be here.
I love that.
Glad to be here.
You're all over, man. You're at these conferences, but if someone wanted to reach out, have a phone call with you, even just like pick your brain on some stuff they're going through, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I mean, Justin, they can reach out to you. Feel free to share that number.
Yeah. My
phone number is 890-9424. Call anytime. Leave a message. I'm not a texter, so I'll text until it's time we need to talk.
I love that. Well, I mean, hey, thanks for throwing that out there too. There's a lot of people I think, hey, look, and if you're listening to this and you're just kind of like, wow, call Jon up. The conversation might change a lot in your perspective. And I appreciate everything you shared, Jon. And, to end the episode, we always go for a trade secret, something that you can leave us with, something that you've learned through your experience of life or work or whatever, kind of a closing statement. Don't mean to spring this on you at the last second, but anything you want to leave us with, my man?
Yeah, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it for as long as I live. The secret to life and success is living on skinny branches. Don't cling to the trunk. Get out there where you're vulnerable, you're uncomfortable. Nature, environment, call it what you want, checks you. Feel the wind in your face when they break, when they fall. The pros climb back up and they do it again. And just know that you never walk alone. We all walk on. We walk on together.
That is profound and directive. Thank you for that. All right, guys. This has been another episode of Trade Talk. And if you liked it, if you enjoyed it, shoot us a quick follow or subscribe or give us a rating if you really liked it. And Jon, thanks so much for being on. Appreciate your time, my man.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Trades Talk, where the next generation of disruptors comes to raise the bar. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in the trades who's ready to level up. For more tools, insights, and community, follow host Justin White and join the movement at jwhitegroup.com.